Greetings, communicators. This is Troy Halley. It's June 15th, about 8 o'clock-ish. And today we're going to be discussing several topics. The major topic is going to be theories, the classical theories, system theories, and then we're going to talk a little bit about culture. So let's get right into it. The first thing we're going to cover is the theories, classical theories. And if I had to choose one of the three classical theories to start a brand new business, I would choose Fayol's administrative theory. And Fayol's administrative theory pretty much was management based. The managers had a lot of control. It wasn't task oriented, it was management oriented, and the managers set the task and the conditions, and they looked out for their employees. And the reason why I would use Fayol's theory is because it's a brand new company. And so there needs to be more control on the communication, but not complete control. It's not task oriented yet because we haven't established the task and things we need to do. So everybody's feeling their way. So we need a lot of the communication to go from top down and minimum feedback from the bottom until we get established systems. And it's only because it's a brand new company. And as soon as I get comfortable, a couple of months in, I probably would change systems. The second thing we're going to cover is the two articles that talked about Marissa Mayer and how she handled her paternity leave. One of the articles was a little critical of her because she didn't take the full amount of maternity leave that she could have taken, and that article suggested that it wasn't good for women. It wasn't showing a good example for women. The second article by Fortune says it was more supportive of Ms. Mayer's decision to only take 2 weeks of maternity leave. I support the second article, and the reason being is because she's a CEO, and when you get to a certain position, a certain level, it's an even playing field. It's not about so much setting industry standards as much as it's showing confidence to your shareholders and to the world that you can do the job. And the best person needs to do the job. And she's pretty much saying she's the best person for the job. She doesn't feel like she's just competing with men, but she's trend setting. She's gone out there and doing the job and not letting anything stop her, not taking 6 months to a year off. Plus, it was a transitional time. It was a transitional period within Yahoo. So for her to take 6 months in a transitional period and have somebody else do the job, what's the whole point of her being the CEO? She took a more hands-on approach. And another thing that could be actually favorable for women in the workforce is that she's going to do 2 weeks and then she's going to have a nursery at the job. Now, she's in a position to have that, and it is a luxury. But because of her efforts, it could be a standard somewhere down the line. But if nobody ever starts it, then it can never actually become a standard. So I applaud her for her work ethic and showing the world that women are just as dedicated to their professions, because all parents are dedicated to professions. Male CEOs are parents also, and they come in and they grind, and she's showing that women can do the same thing. Another article that we're going to talk about from the readings is humor in the workplace. And humor in the workplace can be very, very good, or it could be horrid. And it really depends on the perspectives of the workers more than the humor itself. It depends on the climate of the job. Particularly, humor can create harmony or heartbreak because humor is a form of communication. And every worker may not receive the humor the same because they may not be communicating on the same levels. So if the team all receives the humor the same and they enjoy the humor, then it can bring harmony and strength to the team. But if the humor doesn't reach several people the same way, then it can really cause disjunction and disharmony and makes a real horrible working climate. And that's where the heartbreak comes in. You don't want a toxic environment. Humor can also divide a workplace along diverse lines or bridge gaps between diverse groups employed. It all depends on, like I say, how you perceive the jokes and how the jokes are perceived from the outside. It can be extremely useful because humor can be a unique learning tool is that you can teach lessons with the jokes that you tell about the job. It can teach simple, basic lessons, or it could teach climate and culture, but it teaches it in a funny way, and funny ways tend to stay in our head far longer than real technical ways. So, and what we make about symbols and how the symbols are looked at or made fun of has a powerful effect on how we see humor. So symbols are really important to humor at the work and in society. The way I see the system theory is, at its core, system theory is a way of seeing an organization as a living, fluid set of elements, and they interact and connect and depend upon one another. So a good metaphor would be like a cell or any kind of living organism where there's several smaller systems inside a large system and a boundary line. And so that's how systems theory is. It talks about an organization having a boundary and having a bunch of little small subsets inside of it. And those subsets do particular jobs, but they need the other subsets to work together. And then you can have as many systems inside a larger system as you need, but it all depends on the function of the organization. Systems could be as complex as humans or as simple as single-cell organisms. But the key is that systems need the other elements to function. The system theory sees companies and corporations. The systems theory seems to be how companies and corporations are modeled today. They aren't built factory lines anymore. They're built globally, and they're built in departments, and each department needs another department, because no matter which your produce is or which your output is, the main thing that holds corporations together and the main thing that holds system theory together is communication. Communication is the main input, the main output. Data and communication is everything to any system, no matter what you're selling. If one part don't know, then the whole system can crumble. And passing along data successfully inside and outside of a system, of an organization, is the lifeblood. It gives new data. It helps the organization learn. Without that, the organization is going to go into entropy and it's going to crumble. And I don't care how big the organization is. If they're not communicating with each other, passing along this input, then the organization eventually is going to fall apart. Now we're going to look at an organization that has been seen with public conflict. And the organization I chose was the NFL. And the NFL has been having, not only over the last 12 months, but over the past several years, have been having a battle between the players union and the actual NFL, the corporation. And the reason the battle is because they felt that the commissioner has too much power. That's the public conflict. The commissioner has too much power. And has played out in several ways. The most recent is the incident, the Deflategate incident with Tom Brady, where he was accused of deflating footballs, and the commissioner made a ruling without actual proof. And the NFL the Player Association is saying he shouldn't have the authority to make a ruling without the proof. But there's a collective bargaining agreement, and in the collective bargaining agreement, the players said the commissioner have as much power as he need to have. And so they're using the courts, which is an outside entity, to try to show that the commissioner has too much power. And so that's the public conflict I chose. Now let's take a look at culture. Culture is defined by Sheen as a pattern of basic assumptions invented, discovered, and developed by a given group as it learns to cope with the problems of external adaptation and internal integration. What that pretty much means is this is a bunch of norms that one group have, a bunch of values and beliefs that one group has. It could be unwritten, it could be written, but it's specifically geared toward one group. And those cultures make that group have actions. Now, you must be careful how you view an organization's culture. Smirich says that, in 83 says that viewing organization culture can be done in two ways. There's the variable aspect, culture as variable perspective, and there's a culture as a root metaphor perspective. And a culture as a variable perspective means that one sees the culture as something an organization has. An organization does things. Because it does those things, culture develops. But He also said that organizational culture as a root metaphor means that the culture is expressed. Its expression is a expressed form of what's already in the people's minds and their hearts and their heads. So it's just a manifestation or depiction of what the people already do, and those things are collectively a culture. It's not the people don't do it; it becomes a culture. The culture comes first, and the people will respond based on the collectiveness. And now we're going to look at the final topic is symbols in culture, and specifically at UHD. An important symbol at UHD is the NBA advertisements. I mean, they're everywhere. They're in the city and they're at the school, and it pretty much shows UHD's commitment to higher learning. Another important symbol are the individual success stories, because they show a variety of students from a variety of diverse backgrounds graduating from UHD. This shows that UHD is committed to excellence, but it's also committed to the diversity of the community. And one other symbol that's external of UHD is the shoulder patches on my military uniform. And the shoulder patches on my uniform is a symbol for all of us wear the uniform, but we all have our own little symbols that show us which affiliation, which unit we're affiliated with. So in conclusion, we touched upon theories, classical and systems, and we touched upon culture, and we also covered a few of the readings that we were assigned. I hope you enjoyed this video, and have a good night.